All right, hey, what's up, guys? Coach Mac, Play Fast Football. Today I'm actually going to do a video based on a comment from one of our subscribers, Jordan Smith. Thank you so much for the comment. And he's basically asking about statistical data, numbers to look at, how to evaluate certain numbers, and I'll get into that when I get into the video. Make sure you check out some of our partners, Dome Hats, which is a headwear company that we use. This is my white and orange custom dome hat with our OP logo on the front. All right, one of our mottos, swords up on the back with a Velcro, not a snapback. All of these things are adjustable. You can build your own hat, change the colors, change the panels, change the style of hat, put your own logo on there. You can obviously put words across the back of a Velcro hat like this, different words on the side. Everything is customizable. Every hat has a story. Make sure you use Dome Hats to tell the story of your hat. Baker Sporting Goods, the shirt I got on right now is from Baker Sporting Goods. Our coaching gear, our players' gear, our spirit packs. My uniforms are distributed through Baker Sports. If we ever do an online store for fans, it comes from Baker Sporting Goods, so make sure you check them out. Just Play Football, which is a more powerful way to present, information to your players, so it's more than just a playbook. It has unique quiz features on it where you can quiz your players on your playbook and upcoming game plans and test their knowledge rather than just ask questions and have them nod their head. All right, it's also the best play drawing tool on the market. If I'm going to do webinars or speak at clinics, I use JustPlay to diagram and draw my plays. Make sure you check out GameStrat, sideline replay system that we use here. If you're looking for a highly reliable, highly affordable sideline replay system, check out GameStrat, customer friendly. We've never had one issue with any of their stuff unless it's been user error on our end. DifferenceUSA, the ultimate striking machine. Get thousands of reps without needing a partner. You can hook one up in your weight room. All right, it's really awesome because one of the guys that founded the company is now with the strength department with the Jaguars. Urban Meyer hired him. Anthony Schlegel is his name. Great guy, so make sure you check out DifferenceUSA. HighandTight ball security training aid we try to use with our running backs, receivers, skill players that are going to carry the ball. Each panel has a sensor in it. You have to hold the ball in the exact proper place that it needs to be held. You need to have the points of pressure correct in order to hear the beep. When you hear the beep, you know that you are holding the ball correctly, so now it builds into that muscle memory of wrist above elbow. This is how tight it needs to be. This is the pressure. Anytime you get away from that, you won't hear the beep, and as soon as you don't hear the beep, you know you're doing something wrong. All right, so why not use a training aid that's got an auditory device? So make sure you check out HighandTight. And then Stand Perfect, it's another training aid that we use for stances. The Pro model has, looks almost like a horseshoe in a way, goes into the ground. The youth model is a complete circle for kids with smaller feet. When you're talking about new players, young players getting into a stance, and you don't want to have to waste time using all the buzzwords of heel toe, instep, moving in 6 inches, out 4 inches, move your back foot up 2 inches, move it back. When you don't want to have to waste time using all those buzzwords, you just put the Stand Perfects on the ground exactly where you want your offensive lineman, your receiver, or whatever it may be. You put them on the ground exactly where you want them, and you tell them that they got to get into that position. Non-negotiable, my left foot goes here, my right foot goes here, boom, you're ready to go. So you can save a lot of time and effort and energy using Stand Perfect. Make sure you check it out. All right, so Jordan asked a question about statistical data and how you analyze certain statistics and which ones are important or which ones might be more important than another. And he was talking about, for argument's sake, you might have a game on defense where you give up 20 points, but the other team only ran 35 plays. And then you have a game on defense where you give up 28 points, but the other team ran 65 plays. Even though you gave up more points in one game than the other, should you feel better about it because they ran more plays? So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to take you through the top 5 defenses last year in college, all right, in total defense, okay? And then I'm going to compare that to Alabama, and I'll run you through the numbers, and then I'll run you through some ifs, ands, and whys about those numbers, all right? Obviously, there's some other stuff on defensive efficiency out there. There's a lot of guys smarter than me that chart defensive efficiency, which has a lot to do with, drives that points are scored on and drives that have first downs and yards and other things. This is just straight off the NCAA website of total defense, and I'll go through the numbers and I'll tell you how and why I think it's important and how they equate and how those numbers would be different if each program played, all right, in a different set. So Nick Saban just came out in a recent high school clinic that he was doing on a Zoom call and talked about how his philosophy changed and how all his goals and things have changed on defense because the game is not the same anymore. Used to have the old days where you had a goal board up in your weight room or your locker room, and You know, obviously the first one is always win. That's the most important stat. It always has been. That's never going to change. But then on defense, it would go down and say, hold an opponent under 14 points. Hold an opponent under 75 yards rushing. Hold an opponent under 150 yards passing. Have 3 turnovers. All these different goals that would be up there. And there's still goal boards used today, but they've changed so drastically. And the reason they've changed is because of the tempo, the style of play, RPOs, wide open offenses. How we judge our defense now is so much different than the way we used to do it. So in answering Jordan's question, I'm going to go through these numbers, and then I'm going to flop some numbers around kind of to show you how and why they could be different. So in the top 5 last year, you had Army, Marshall, San Diego State, West Virginia, and Wisconsin. Again, this is total defense, not scoring defense, and it goes by yards per game. All right, so this is a category that starts off with yards per game allowed. I'm going to break it down further into some other things and show you how or why those things would be different. On the left right here, this number I got on the left, these are the number of plays the other teams averaged, all right, against each school. So you can see Army, 55, Marshall, 63, San Diego State, 65, West Virginia, 52, Wisconsin, 59, and then amazingly, Alabama, 69. Now, what do those number of plays have to do with? How you play offense on your team. If your team is a wide open offense, and your team scores a bunch of points, and you score points quickly, the other team's probably going to run more plays. All right, now they have to, again, they also have to get first downs and matriculate down the field. So just by playing faster doesn't mean the other team is going to run more plays, because if they're 3 and out every drive, they're not going to run more plays. But the interesting thing is you can kind of break it down into the style of plays. The 2 teams on the board with the least amount of snaps against them happen to be 2 teams that also have a higher time of possession on offense. All right, so there are 2 teams. Army's obviously an option team, and Wisconsin's been more of a ground and pound Big Ten style team. Those 2 teams have the least amount of offensive snaps played against them because they hold on to the ball longer. And I'll show you later why that stuff equates. Okay, so Army, 275 yards per game given up, 14.8 points per game given up, 5 yards per play given up. So every play that's run against them, they give up 5 yards on average. Now, here's an interesting one. 3.77 points per play. So in other words, every 3.7 plays the offense runs equates to 1 point. And I'll show you why that's important later on, okay? Marshall, 279 yards per game, 13 points per game, 4.4, all right, yards per play average against them, 4.8 points per play. That higher number is better, because on defense, remember, that means for every 4.8 plays, the team's only going to average 1 point. I know you don't score 1 point in football. It's just a numbers thing to look at analytically. I know it goes by 3s and 6s or 7s, but that means that so a team has to run a full play more versus Marshall to score on average a point than they do versus Army. So the higher number is better, okay? San Diego State, 283 yards per game, 17.7 points per game, 4.36 yards per play, 3.6 points per play. Okay, so again, remember, the higher number is better. West Virginia, 291 yards per game, 20.5 points per game, 4.65 yards per play, 3 points per play. That low number is not very good, and I'll show you, again, these numbers that I have at the end, I'll show you some things, and then I'm going to have a calculator here to add some things up. Okay, Wisconsin, 299 yards per game, 17.4 points a game, 5.01 yards per play, 3.4 points per play. Okay, and then there's Alabama, the national champion at the bottom. Alabama, 352 yards a game. That is almost 75 yards more per game given up than the #1 defense in the nation, Army. Alabama happened to finish 32nd in the nation last year on defense as the national champion. 19.38 points per game. The only, of those 5 on the board, the only team that gives up more points per game than them is West Virginia at 20.5. 5.1 yards per play. Okay, 5.1 yards per play. 3.6 points per play. So every 3.6 plays, the other team's going to average 1 point. Now, some other factors you got to take into consideration. What league do you play in? What style of football does your offense play? What style of football do the other offenses play? Who are your opponents? If you play opponents that are all ground control, time of possession teams, your defensive numbers are going to be a little bit better. Okay? Alabama, as the national champion, and this year the best team in college football, their numbers on defense are inflated, but that's also because they score 50 points a game. All right? Now, where does that kind of translate? So let's just take a look. What I've got next to Army, all right, is how many points per game Army would give up if they played the number of snaps Alabama played. Okay, so again, Alabama's defense averaged 69 snaps a game. Army's averaged 55. If Army's defense played Alabama snaps per game, they would give up 18.3 points a game. That is almost 4 points a game higher than they give up right now. Why? Because they're playing 14 more snaps, and their average point per play leads you to believe that in another 14 snaps, that team would score somehow on average an extra 4 points. Okay? Marshall led the country, I believe, or were right there at the top, 13 points a game. If they played Alabama snaps, they would give up 14.3, a full point higher if they played Alabama snaps on defense. San Diego State, 17.7, 19.1, all right, almost a point and a half higher if they played the amount of snaps Alabama played. West Virginia, 20.5, 23 points a game if they played the amount of snaps Alabama played. That is almost 2.5 points more per game if they played the same amount of snaps as Alabama. All right, Wisconsin, 17.4 points per game, 20.2 if they played Alabama snaps. That is almost 3 points higher a game if they played Alabama snaps. What does that mean? The more snaps the other team has, the better chance they have to score points. When you look at your ratio of points per play, you can figure out, based on how many snaps you're going to play against in a game, about how many points you're going to give up on average. Now, again, these are all just statistical numbers, statistical averages. All right, so you can't go out and say, you might play a game and the other team has 32 snaps, but they score 65 points on you because they're scoring 80-yard touchdowns. You might play a game where the other team has 65 snaps, but they're going 4 yards or 3 yards in a cloud of dust, going for it on 4th down, and they only score 17 points against you, but they had 65 snaps. Well, what you can do is you can look at it from, like the question Jordan asked, as your own defense, so you can kind of look at it and find some numbers that equate, and points per play is a pretty good number because then you can kind of figure out where you need to be depending on the type of offense you play. So obviously the way Alabama played offense and the way Saban has changed, all right, his mind and his philosophy, they now are open on offense. They play at a faster tempo. They score a ton more points. And he had to adjust his defensive philosophy because Alabama's playing 69 snaps a game on defense. There's a reason for that. They're scoring 50-something points a game, and some of those points were scored in a hurry, just like Oregon and Baylor used to do back in the day when they were dominant on offense. The more snaps you play, the more yards you're going to give up, all right, the more points you're going to give up. Now, if we flip those numbers around, okay, if you took Marshall at 13 points a game and they played the number of snaps on defense that Army plays, they would average, all right, 11.4. They would average almost 1.5 points less per game if they played the same number of snaps that Army played. If you look at San Diego State, 15.2, okay, they give up 17.7 points a game. That is more than 2 points less a game if they played the same amount of snaps at Army, who is the lowest snap count on the board at 55. Why? They're a triple option ball control team. The other team doesn't get possessions. The other team doesn't get as many snaps in. Okay? San Diego State, all right, we just talked about. West Virginia, 20.5 points a game. They'd only give up 18.3. So almost 2 full points less if they played the same amount of snaps as Army. All right? Wisconsin, 17.4. 16.1 if they played the same amount of snaps as Army. All right, that's more than a point. All right, that's 0.03 or 1.3 points per game if they played Army snaps. And then look at Alabama. Alabama gave up 19.38 points a game last year, which is relatively high for them in the Saban era. If they played the same amount of snaps as Army, they'd give up 15.2 points a game. They give up almost 4 points less a game on average if they played the same amount of snaps that Army plays on defense. Okay, so how you play on offense, the style that you play, how many points you score, how quickly you score, leads to possessions. Now, the one thing that I didn't do here, and I'd have to find the stats in another area, but in the stats that I compiled recently, it's easy on the NCAA site. I didn't look at points per possession. That's always going to be one of the biggest things that you look at is points per possession. But I thought it would be fun to look at points per play since we know how many snaps on average each of these schools played, all right, and we know how many points they gave up per game. We can look at an average of points per play, and then we can have fun and flip the numbers around and go, hey, look how much worse these teams would be if they played Alabama snaps. Look how much better these teams would be if they played Army snaps. Because the style of play, all right, the style of play that you use on offense is going to affect your defense. And that's why you need to have a staff that is in unison with your philosophy of how you're going to play the game of football, so you don't end up having all kind of arguments between the offense and the defense, because the two things go hand in hand. How you play offense is going to have a big impact on your defensive numbers, and a guy like Saban has to be able to swallow his pride and take back and say, look, I'm a defensive coach, but I'm going to give up my ego on some of these defensive numbers so that we score more, because I think that's how you win games. Now, if you looked at some of these averages, so look at yards per game, all right, so Army gave up 275 yards per game, but they only played 55 snaps, okay? So 275 divided by 55, 5 yards of play, right? We already got the number on the board. Times that by Alabama snaps. If Army played the amount of snaps on defense that Alabama played, they would give up 345 yards a game. They would give up 70 more yards a game if they just played the same amount of snaps as Alabama. All right, Marshall, 4.4 yards per game. Okay, 4.4 yards per play, sorry. 69 times 4.4. Marshall would give up 303 yards, okay, so they would give up almost 30 yards or 24 yards more a game if they played Alabama snaps. Now, what you got to look at is Marshall only plays 6 less snaps a game, so it's not that big of a difference, okay? All right, same thing here. Only 4 less snaps, 4.36 yards a game times 69. They give up 300 yards a game, which is 17 yards more. Not as drastic as the Army number. Why? They play similar amount of snaps, so it's not that big of a deal. All right, West Virginia is going to be in the same ballpark. 4.65, okay, times 69 equals 320 yards a game. West Virginia would give up about 29 to 30 more yards a game if they played Alabama snap. Now, another interesting one will be Wisconsin. 10 less snaps per game. They give up about 5.01 yards a play times 69, 345 yards a game. So because Alabama averaged 10 more snaps on defense a game, Wisconsin's total per game would have went up 46 yards. So then when you look at that, Alabama's yard per game isn't really off that far when you look at yards per play. They're not off that far from everybody else, but when you look at yards per game, they look like they're miles away from everybody else. They're 75 to 80 yards away from Army. So Army is 80 yards a game better on defense than Alabama. Okay, those are some of the things that you need to look at. Now, yards per play, what if some of these defenses played Army snaps? All right, so 4.4 times 55. Marshall goes from 279 a game, all right, to only giving up 242 a game. So if Marshall played Army's snaps on defense, all right, average snaps on defense, they would give up 30 yards less a game than Army did. Okay, so you can see right here, San Diego State will probably be the best. They only give up 4.36. They'd only give up 239 a game. All right, so San Diego State would only give up 239 a game if they played Army snaps. Now, let's jump all the way down to the national champion. Alabama, 352 yards a game, we said, right? 5.1 times 55. They'd only give up 280.5 yards a game. So Alabama would give up 70 to 75 yards less a game if they played Army snaps. So how do you take and how do you equate all these numbers? Offense and defense correlate together. How you play on offense has a big effect on how you play on defense. You still have to be good on defense. But how good you are on defense sometimes is, statistically, when you look at a team like Alabama that won a national championship, when you look at these numbers statistically, they don't jump off the board like they used to 8-9 years ago. Okay? Giving up almost 20 points a game. But yet if they played Army style of football, all right? And again, we could say if they played Army style of football, would they win a national championship? Nobody knows, but that point's irrelevant. To me, at least, all right? It's irrelevant. If they played Army style of football, they'd give up 4 points less a game on defense. So which one do you want to sacrifice? Do you want to go back to the old days of only giving up 15 to 14 points a game and sacrifice how you play offense? Because it's a direct correlation. Army has one of the top 10 time of possessions. They only average going against 55 plays a game. And again, these are averages. Don't look at the number of games played, because last year, games played fluctuates, but you can still look at an average of snaps played per game. All right, so how you play defense and how you play offense go hand in hand. All right, and especially how you play defense. The way your offense works, if your offense is wide open, they try to be tempo, they try to push the pace, your defensive numbers, you better be willing to look at some type of point per play or point per possession deal to figure out what's good on defense. And you got to look at getting off the field on third down and things like that. But the bottom line is all these numbers, all right, they mean something, but if you switch them around, you can see how drastically different they could be based on the number of snaps you play per game. All right, so the number of snaps you face per game, and then based on, obviously, all right, your yards per play. All these schools are within 1 yard per play given up on defense. They're all somewhere from 4.36 to 5.1. So they're all in this minute little, all right, section of how different. It's not like one school gives up 3 yards a play and another school gives up 10 yards a play. If that's the difference, it doesn't matter how many snaps you play, you're not going to play good defense. So they're all within 1 yard of each other. The snaps mean so much in that category. You're talking about 30 to 40 to 50 to 60, 70 yards a game just in that category. And then the points per play. When you look at how many snaps, it's fluctuating anywhere from 2 to 4 points a game from Alabama snaps to Army snaps. All right, so that's sometimes how you have to look at statistics. That's how you have to evaluate and understand your statistics. That's how you have to understand your game plan on offense. Who's your head coach? How does he want to play offense? Defensive coordinator better understand that. A lot of times defensive coordinators, when you take a job, you better understand how your offense plays, because if you're trying to build your resume on numbers, there's certain places where you're going because you have a chance to win more games, but you better understand your resume is going to look better with wins, but your points a game and all your records and all your stats that guys like to throw out on resumes, you know, I coach defenses that give up 6 points a game, 8 points a game. You might take a certain job where that number is going to go up, but also your wins or state championships or titles might go up. So you look at Alabama, Nick Saban is perfectly fine giving up almost 20 yards a game, 5 yards a play, 3.6 points per play, because he knows the way they play offense, he can win a national championship. And at the end of the day, winning games, getting to the playoffs in high school, winning your district, that's what it's all about. So hopefully this data helps you evaluate why your numbers might look the way they do, if and when they're skewed, how you can evaluate college or NFL numbers to kind of get a better gist of why things are different, how you can really evaluate a defense based on the number of snaps they played and how long they're on the field and yards per play, points per play, all kind of things like that. So as always, I appreciate everything you guys do for me at PlayFast. If you are not a subscriber, make sure you click that subscribe button, turn your notifications on so you know every time a new video comes out or I go on YouTube Live. Leave me a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you like this or don't like this. All right. Also leave a message, because just like this, Jordan Smith left me a comment in one of the videos I did a video like this because of the comment he left. So if you leave a comment or an idea, I may be able to do a video for you. All right. And then it also lets me know what you like and what you don't like. So we also went live audio on the Relevant app. So if you don't know what the Relevant app is, RELEVNT, all right, app on your phone, look it up. Get the app. It's a free app. You download it. You join different vibes. This is my PlayFast vibe. So this live audio will get archived right now, and anybody could listen to this live audio session as soon as I upload it onto, and it gets archived onto the Relevant app. So make sure you check out the Relevant app as well. All right. I appreciate what you guys do. If you're playing right now, stay safe. If you're getting ready to play, train well, work hard. Good luck to you in the spring. Remember, you won't play well until you play fast. I'll see you guys next time.